what I'm trying to say is, kami, immediately when they defected, we considered them as enemies because they became enemies of the state. Now I'd like to ask you point blank, are you in the same, do you share the same sentiment regarding your members or former members who, sabi nga nila, sumampa do sa NPA para makipaglaban na gamit ang armas? Please.
Mr. Chair, definitely we do not consider them as enemies.
Do not consider them as enemies.
They are
patay sila ng mga taong gobyerno, ng mga mayors, na
they are engaged in rebellion, Mr. Chair. They are conducting or committing an illegal act. But we do not judge them to be enemies. Ang tingin namin, ginawa nila yon because hindi sila nasasapatan.
I'm sorry to say this, but I cannot reconcile. When Big Corpus and eventually Tagamulila, Lieutenant Tagamulila, defected to the NPA, would that make the PMA a recruiter of the NPA? So anyway, Senate President is recognized.
I think there's something that we need to answer. No, if that is the logic, na baka naman yung sinasabi ni Joe Masison, hiwalay yung sinasabi niya at saka sa revolutionary movement na gusto niya or yung sa NPA, CPP. Why is it that the resource persons that we have here, former rebels, documented former rebels, ang pinagdaanan, hindi diretsong NPA, CPP. Ang pinagdadaanan, either nagkabataan party list or ano ba ito, yung LFS o Gabriela or yung mga sinasabi na movements ni Joe Masison. I think that's what we need to answer.
Mr. Chair, alam niyo po, ang NPA nagre-recruit yan among the idealistic sectors of our society. And of course, their first priority for recruitment would be precisely the activists. Kasi ito yung tingin nila kayang magsakripisyo, can devote their full time to these kinds of activities. I mean, it would be strange for them to be recruiting from the business sector. Although I think they are also doing that. But, that is the nature of the revolutionary movements. Hindi lang po sa Pilipinas, I think all over the world. All the revolutionary movements, of course, they recruit primarily from these kinds of cause-oriented groups. At hindi na ho bago yan. Hindi naman natin tinatanggi na may recruitment talaga. I mean, if their experiences are to be believed, at di naman namin mapapasubalian. But I think, ang point namin dito, that does not mean that the organizations kung saan nagre-recruit ang NPA, sasabihin na natin, mga front yan, o mga bahagi na rin ng armado yan. That is a dangerous assumption to make, Mr. Chair. I think that is the only point.
All right. In that case, if what you're saying is accurate, if what you're saying is accurate, then General Parlade's warning is correct. It has value. Mag-ingat yung mga sumasapi kasi doon tumatarget ng NPA. Doon sa sinasabi mo na siyempre sa mga aktivista sila mag-iimbita. Hindi sila mag-iimbita direkta from just the public. Di ba? Following your logic, then may value yung sinasabi ni Parlade na mag-ingat yung mga kababayan natin, ng mga celebrities, hindi ba?
Mr. Chair, if that are mere words, I will not we eat that for breakfast. But we look at this in the context of the operations of the NTF-LCAC, of the counterinsurgency operations. Hindi lang ho kasi salita may kasabay na military actions, may military operations. And I think the resource persons previously already narrated their experiences na hindi lang simpleng nare-red tag yun. May kasabay yun na surveillance, may kasabay na harassment, kakasuhan ka. And that is what we call red tagging, not the simple words, but the totality of what is happening now. Now this is a systematic attack on these organizations that puts their lives in danger, their rights their liberty is also in danger. Kaya ho malaking concern sa amin. Kung salita lang ho yan, wala kaming problema. But it's more than that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, General Speron, keep on.
Yes, before I recognize Secretary Speron, no, nabanggit ko kanina si General Corpus, saka si Tagamulila, no, Lieutenant Tagamulila. Yun, talaga masasabi namin, kami as P-Mayors, personal decision nila yun. Sarili nila. Pero kami, nung nag-defect sila, we considered them as enemies, ano? Cavaliers but enemies, because they became enemies of the state. Ang tanong ko is, yung mga na-recruit yung mga members ng Makabayan, Anak Bayan, and so forth and so on, kinusuitan nyo ba sila na, kasi gobyerno na rin kayo eh. Nakita nyo yung connection? Pareho tayong gobyerno because you became elected officials of the House of Representatives of Congress. So pareho yung situation natin. Are you ready to disown or denounce them? Having joined the NPA, na lumalaban sa gobyerno, armed struggle ito hindi ito yung laban sa kalye na nakipaglaban-laban sa mga issues. Ito, bakbakan ito, pumapatay ng mga sundalo, nag-extort ng pera sa mga may mga negosyo, sa mga kanayunan. Pareho tayo, we're on the same boat practically. But what I'm trying to say is, kami, immediately when they defected, we consider them as enemies because they became enemies of the state. Now, I'd like to ask you point blank. Are you in the same, do you share the same sentiment regarding your members or former members who, sabi nga nila, sumampa do sa NPA para makipaglaban na gamit na armas? Please.
Mr. Chair, definitely we do not consider them as enemies.
Do not consider them as enemies.
They are
patay sila ng mga taong gobyerno, ng mga mayors,
they are engaged in rebellion, Mr. Chair. They are conducting or committing an illegal act. But we do not judge them to be enemies. Ang tingin namin, ginawa nila yon because hindi sila
Well,
nasasapatan.
I'm sorry to say this, but I cannot reconcile. Anyway, I will not recognize Secretary Speron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patungkol po naman doon sa PMA na may na-recruit doon o nag-defect, hindi naman mangyayari yun kung hindi nasusugan ng pagre-recruita. Dahil doon sa naging asawa din ni Lieutenant Corpus ay napapasama din sa mga aktivista. Kaya hindi nangyari lang yon na sa sarili niya mag-join na ako, mag-defect ako. May recruitment na nangyari. Ngunit pagkatapos noon, ay wala nang sumunod. Kung may sumunod man, ay abi pa rin papatikusin. And we consider them as enemies of the Republic.